Hello, viewers. I'm Vibhuti Jha. This is Jaipur Dialogue USA, and you are welcome again. Thank you for joining us today. And as always, as I request you, please like, subscribe, and support our channel every which way possible. Give your feedback. We respect it. And thank you very much for joining today. I have the great pleasure in welcoming my returning champion from Canada, Daniel Bordman. And I simply love to interact with him because we have a huge age gap between the two of us. And that's why I love it even more because sometimes he makes me feel really young. so, so Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me
And
back.
I've been very well, very well. Indian elections have gone through, and tomorrow, that is Thursday, the debate will happen in the United States between the two almost 80 years and 180-year past
Yep.
president and former president. In my opinion, that will be a very defining moment for the democracies in America and other places. That is a matter of separate subject. But today I wanted to ask you a very important question because I've seen you participate in anti-Khalistan movements in Canada, Toronto, wherever it have happened. You are all over, and I'm very proud of you that you have taken the courage and the guts to stand up to the unreasonable and demands of a group of people who are using a soil of Canada to destroy the image of you people. So that's something which is you are standing up for that. You deserve the kudos and applause from all of us, our gratitude, and thank you for joining the band. So tell us one thing. This is a thought that has happened, and I want to hear your thoughts as a journalist and a satirist or a comic, as a stand-up comedian, all sense included. Do you think that the enemies of democracy, and I'm very clear about it, no mincing words, the enemies of democracies are using freedom as the fault line of democracy? Freedom for me, not for thee. And are the Canadian and American government bending backwards to accommodate a thought process that wants to destroy the very substance on which our democracy thrives, that is freedom?
Yeah, this is a very good question, and I think the answer is a little bit complicated. So, the answer would be like they're using. I think you said in the question they're using a distortion of freedom to push their narrative. Right? They're screaming and wrapping themselves in freedom or free speech or whatever it is they claim at the time to sort of push whatever anti-freedom message they have through. Like it's sort of a cloaking mechanism, right? The best example is, there are lefties right now who are all in arms for free speech because there's anti-Palestinian racism and it's hurting free speech, and they're out on the things, and they have professors in the universities who are getting in trouble for pushing Holocaust denial or advocating for a genocide of Jews. And free speech, they need to push this. But if you looked at any of the people defending free speech since October 7th for these academics, all of them were highly censorious in every other scenario for the last 10 years. So that's like one case study where you have people like expressing like freedom, we need free speech, free this, as a means to prop up Islamists and Marxists into the institutions to erode the very foundations which our civilization stands for. And the first thing the Islamists and Marxists do is they come for free speech. So this is like one area where I think that can be said. Like we have this love of freedom, which I think is good, and especially in America, right? I'm in Canada, which is a little more Trudeau than you guys. It's it's like California on steroids with snow. If Americans need a translation there. I love the American ethos of the love of freedom and individuality and all that. I think it's a key driving factor in the success of America and the world in general. But the lack of understanding of people's freedoms can be dangerous, right? I think freedom comes with responsibility. And if you just want to have, freedom to do anything and just live in this libertarian fantasy land where we can all just, walk around and just do whatever we want all the time, like that is that is not freedom. And we need to have a serious conversation about, like, you know, what are our values? What do we stand to represent? What are we doing? Because if there is no core to civilization, and if it's just a nebulous concept of freedom, we've seen that concept of freedom, like you can market something that's anti-freedom as pro-freedom and use it to erode everyone else's freedom if we're just rah rah rah, we need maximum freedom. So I think a society needs a conversation about values, principles, honor, and on top of freedom, in order to survive. But if you just have this, I think, this vague attachment to the concept of freedom, then bad actors can manipulate that and use it against you.
You said values, principles, and morals. It's very interesting that the US military, I don't know whether which specific wing, whether it is CIA or sorry, Marines or whatever, they took out the three words, values, principles, and morals, from their insignia.
I miss that.
I just saw this yesterday. And there was a massive anger expressed about that. The values be damned, morals be damned, and whatever the incidence was, I picked it up because you said just now, use the word values. Tell us something about it. That how is it that Canada, and India responded to that by by honoring the people killed in Kanishka bombings, by maintaining a silence in the Vancouver embassy and Indian Parliament or whatever. Jaishankar expressed that very strongly. How is it that the Niger killing, which is also talked about as an inter-gang rivalry scenario, is attracting so much attention from Trudeau, Justin?
I mean, you have to look at all the different factors. So the government line is the famous Trudeau line: a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, since 2015. That's like in response to, well, some of them joined ISIS and they're coming back here to kill us all. A Canadian is a Canadian, a Canadian. Don't be racist. It's often how the phrase is used. And again, in this, so I mean, let's take the principle. Okay, is this a principled stance? Niger was a Canadian citizen. Yes, he was denied the first two times. Never should have been a Canadian citizen. Somehow snuck in, probably a Liberal MP out in BC snuck him in the country. Okay, but he's a Canadian, and he was killed. And all Canadian lives matter. So all lives matter. Life is paramount. Okay, this is what we're saying. Now, does this track with a government that is really pushing assisted suicide, that is huge on abortion? And that's the most fundamental right. Is life paramount? Is that the principle? No. Okay, it's okay. Canadians can't be killed by foreign nationals. Is that our principle? I point to Karima Baloch, an actual human rights activist, strangled and then thrown in the river. The Toronto police thought it was a suicide. She strangled herself. Then after she killed herself, when she was dead, she picked up her own dead body and threw it in the river, just like other people have been murdered by the ISI internationally. So is our principle that we stand when it seems like our citizens have been assassinated? I have a friend who was killed by foreign interference. Many Amin, most likely killed by the IRGC. We've seen, I mean, even the judge in the murder said there's something more going on here. Like, even left the door open to it. Nothing about that. But Hardip Singh Nijjar, he gets all this attention, gets a moment of silence, elevated up. So if we're looking at the track panel, what is it? Well, the only thing that fits the pattern of Trudeau is he is a Khalistani terrorist, and that's why he's getting praised. And it's a complete inversion of morality. But because he is the worst person to prop up, that's why Trudeau wants to prop him up. Trudeau has this mentality. So yes, you could say there's Khalistani infiltration, but I do think there's a fundamental Trudeau mentality that's exhibited in a lot of the political left of, I am a good person, I am a progressive person. If I can embrace and accept the worst thing possible, that makes me the best person possible. And who are you to not accept? Like, you're not as good as me. So this is the same mentality of Trudeau, who literally said returning ISIS fighters could be a powerful voice for de-radicalization in the country. And then when the Conservatives criticized, he called them Islamophobic, right? Because he can embrace the literal worst of society, ISIS fighters. And he is so smart and so compassionate that he can see that ISIS fighters are actually a positive force in the world, unlike you, who is small-minded and Islamophobic and doesn't like ISIS. Right, this is the same thing with hard up signature, like by memorializing, showing I will go to DEFCON 1 for a terrorist who hates this country. That's just how magnanimous I am. I think that's a lot of the Trudeau mentality, and then you actually do have hardline Khalistanis within all the parties pushing this. So when Trudeau, so there's like there's already a base for Trudeau's narcissistic detached musings, let's say.
Narcissistic dissatisfaction. Here is another issue, which is, as an American, you are our Canada and United States are kind of conjoined, if not joined. This bothers a lot of Indians, not only in India but here as well. The way our governments are pandering and appeasing elements which are detrimental to its own interests eventually, who are baiting India into allegations which, as you say, in democracy, not proven as yet. The entire episode, the entire saga of Khalistan terrorism has gathered immense momentum because of their treatment in, like, people like Panun in the United States or people in Canada in the parliament. How have they captured that imagination of the political parties in America or Canada?
Yeah, I mean, it is a strange thing. Like, I think it's like a lot of things. It's a confluence of a lot of different factors, I think. So you could say, money from the ISI and now the CCP to build out a movement, right? If you can pay people at Gurdwaras to be on staff and then have all this equipment. I mean, who has enough money to have a mock trial out in BC with a cage to put Modi in and set up a thing like that? Costs money, okay? And I know stuff like that's hard to raise because I've seen the struggle of like independent, Jewish people trying to raise money for just like a rally that isn't a terrorist. Like, I think we can all smell foreign interference when there's the level of theatrics we're dealing with. So there's that. There's the fact that the Khalistanis have, I mean, we know of the Red Green Alliance, the Islamist and the Communist. The Khalistanis, I mean, they party with both, but they function the same way, where they've learned to adopt the leftist language. Oh, oppressor oppressed. We are Sikhs are oppressed. Hindus are oppressors. 1984 was a genocide done by Modi. Was he in power at the time? No, doesn't matter. That's part of their success. Is they just said, okay, we'll say the words. We'll do the left wing thing. So they made all the alliances within the diversity, equity, inclusion, woke, critical race, whatever you want to call it, that wing. The Khalistanis have, adopted that and been like, okay, we'll go here. Let's be honest. I can say this. I love the Hindu and the Indian community. You guys are pretty much the Jews. So as a Jew, I can say this. You're not politically active. Yeah. You're not truculent. You're not out there. Not that no one is. I mean, you have a podcast, but like you're very highly involved, and you know that. But I think you as a Hindu would probably, if we were behind closed doors, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, we're out in public on a podcast right now, but I would say the Jewish community, the Hindu community, kind of was sleepwalking into the abyss for the last few decades. And the Jews post October 7th have a lot of them taking the heads of the sand, heads still in the sand for a lot of them, or maybe some are just in the sand, not 3 feet deep in the sand. But a lot of Hindus still have the head in the sand, still sleepwalking towards the abyss. I mean, there should be warning bells going off that what's happening to the Jews. You're in the universities, you're 10 years behind the Jews. And you're going to be where we are in about 3 or 4 years. Like, that's the speed at which it's going. You're 10 years behind, but the velocity is increased. So you're going to be there, right? So the mentality of our communities to sort of, oh, it's fine. We're used to it. Oh, Hindus, we suffer a lot. Jews, we suffer a lot. This always happens. Just finding reasons to shrug our shoulders and not get out there, right? And the Hindus have the numbers that if they get active, they can stop. Like, they don't even need to, like, there's such, sheer force of numbers in that community that it just activation, you'll win. But the switch hasn't been flipped there because, Hindus have been teaching the kids, integrate into America, get a good job, have a good life, find a good wife. All of that is good things. I'm not criticizing a single cent of that, right? And that's why it's been a very successful community, low crime rates, high integration rates. Like, I'm not saying every Hindu is perfect, but in general, if you look at the statistics, you go, okay, we're having a good time here. But there is flaws with having a good time. Is people tend to believe the arc of history is always forward and progress will always go up. And sorry, but the third world could come for you any moment. Like we are kind of standing at the precipice of the abyss here, and you kind of need to wake up to that. So I think you have these radical ideologies that are making huge pushes to the institutions. You have the anti-India literal countries, like if Chinese government and the Pakistani government, they'll spend money on this. The Indian government won't spend money on foreign propaganda, just like the Israeli government doesn't. And because the Israelis are so afraid of being accused of it. But we, and like Canada's not spending a lot of money on foreign propaganda. We're functioning nations. It's nations with ideological pushes that do it. So you have foreign funding, you have bad ideas, and you have a relatively passive population here, and then a group of hardline, high finance radicals that can recruit more to take the power in the streets, and you have the recipe for disaster here. So I mean those are the big four factors that we're seeing, like the rise of the Khalistani movement, the Muslim Brotherhood, the neo-Marxists, whatever you want to call the coalition of bad ideas here. But there's not one silver bullet, unfortunately. Like it would be nice. Like, listen, if I could debank the CPC, would everything get better right now? Yeah, it would. But there's a lot that sort of needs to be done. Like there needs to be massive cultural shifts inside the Hindu community, outside the Hindu community, inside America, Canada, like sort of across the board. There needs to be a sort of I think we need to sort of deal with reality. And the reality of where we're living and what could happen to us right now. And if we don't do that, it's only going to get worse.
I will pick on 2 or 3 words that you used here. The reality, the fact that the Hindu and Jewish people have their heads in the sand, probably 3 feet deep, and they believe in those famous Hindu phrase, a Hindu statement called "the whole world is a village." The Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam part, if you have heard about it, we consider the whole village. The world is one, and the village is one. There is a wonderful concept of oneness. That's a different concept than saying in a political terminology of being that we are all the same. There's another part you brought in, the China element. Yes, we are witnessing here in America, and I often wonder about it. China is buying up agriculture land next to American military bases here, right? Yeah. After they have established 15, 20, 30 such bases, acquired critical land next to military bases, now US Congress is talking about banning China from buying that close to this one. They are using our freedom to buy the land. India doesn't allow buying of agriculture land by even those who are living abroad, by the way. But we are treated, but China is doing it. China is doing it under the freedom banner. US reacts after so many lands have been bought over. What is going on with democracy and the freedom here? That's what I say, that the enemies of democracy are using freedom as our fault line. And that particular thought is becoming in a belief system of me, because now I see that happening absolutely in daylight, as a daylight robbery. Think about TikTok. India banned TikTok. US is still considering banning, and they have given them 10 months time to change the ownership of the whole thing. And that congressional vote is being challenged in the US courts by China. That is unconstitutional against its own freedom of speech regulations. Go ahead, make my day.
Yeah, I mean, I think TikTok and the China, this is like the perfect example. This is actually a better example of what I gave of the sort of the manipulation of freedom. Like, okay, what do you do when you have foreign funded assets who, again, want to just buy property or cause chaos? And you could say, like, American citizens have rights. Okay, what if there's like an American citizen connected to the CCP? What if there's an American citizen connected to the ISI, the Taliban, the Maduro regime, the Islamic Republic of Iran? What if they're, born in America but a plant to the IRGC? Like, these are serious questions. And, for foreign fund, it's pretty easy, right? If China's buying it, listen, I'm, I'm not American, but I don't think I have the same rights in America as an American does. I'm a Canadian. I'm not an American. I don't have I don't have the rights to come in. Like, I don't think I have the right to, like, really, like, violently protest in America. Like there's certain things in which I think I could do, like, in America, that I would. Like, I wouldn't be, like, overly
Under
protest, but,
current
like,
dispensation, just walk in, my friend. Just walk in.
like, I wouldn't, like, do any anti-America
Yeah.
protests in America. Like, there's people I criticize. I would wave an American flag on if there was an America march or something. I would be like, as Canadian, America good. But, like, I'm a Canadian. I should have rights in Canada, and Americans have more rights than Canadians in America, and vice versa. Like, your rights from America don't transfer when you go to a different country. Like, there are different laws there. And again, there was this false belief that freedom is the thing that like, I think an inversal of cause and effect of freedom that is famous in the Iraq War, right? We thought, let's kill Saddam, knock him over, give the Iraqi people freedom and democracy, and they'll become like us. And that's not how freedom works. It's actually when people become like us, when people become westernized, and when people, or it doesn't have to be Western, like when people find solid values. I mean, Japan, South Korea, India, right? Very non-Western functioning democracies, right? But when a society itself finds certain values and gets to a point that it can create a functioning modern democracy, then a modern democracy is possible. It's not just letting people vote in an election that creates a free people. It's the culture of the people can create a free society. That's what we should have learned in the last 20 years. I'm not sure if we have learned it because I think this is the Democrats' open borders thing. They just think bring everyone into America and they will become Americanized, and it's not the way it's going to work. It's not how people are. It's not going to happen. And again, my favorite thing is, like, it's magical thinking. Like, in there's two political parties in the world, right? And it's magical thinking versus reality. And it doesn't always pan out left, right, whatever. But that's, I think, like a lot of what we see in modern politics, the rise of all these parties coming out of nowhere, and you have these establishment type parties that are all kind of the same, and people yell globalism, blah, 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 blah. You have a lot of sort of policy rooted in magical thinking, environmental stuff, right? We'll put taxes on the farmers, and if the farmers don't grow food, that will fix the climate. And then you have reality people go, I like eating food. We need to eat the food. What are we doing? Food is good. Like, what are we talking about? We need food. I'm voting for food. Because in the real world, people need to eat food, right? This is, reality, right? Magical thinking. Oh, Hamas can moderate. Maybe we have it under control. Or there's a border thing. Reality. They want to kill us all, and they're going to try and kill us all. How do we know this? They keep saying they're going to try and kill us all. This is red. Magical thinking. Oh, America, we can bring people in and they'll become American. We're all synergizing this and that. Magical thinking. Reality. The CCP is a problem. The ISI is a problem. The IRGC is a problem. Russians are a problem. Like, there are monsters actually under the bed, and they have to be dealt with. And America, if the West decides to deal with these problems, we'll win. We can easily defeat them, right? It's just a matter of will, right? We have the skill. We just need the will to do it. And if we find the will to confront these problems, great, we're fine. If we don't, expect to see living standards decrease, and I mean, I'll give you a biblical reference. You give me a Hindu one, like the Tower of Babel. It's an actual thing. You think you get too close, too hubris, too much. If no one in the room speaks the same language, it's going to be chaos. And it's not because one language is better than the other. It's because you need to communicate to the people in your general proximity in order to function.
You made a beautiful distinction between the magical thinking and realistic thinking. And that is where we are living in a myopic world of our own, hallucinatory world of our own, in which utopia is reality. This is what is driving the left liberal ecosystem in this part of the world. They have captured that imagination. And I go back, they captured that truth. This was told to me, Daniel, soon after 9/11, that this is the beginning of our struggle with the Western world and democracies. We can't fight a single non-Islamic country on a pure military strength, but we can be guerrilla warfares. We can launch a guerrilla warfare. How many Joes will you protect with your marine? Because we can kill them anywhere on the planet Earth. What you said just now, that we have the skill to deal with it, but not the will. That's a very, very critical element here, because yes, there definitely the skill to destroy, but you have a problem. The Western democracies have a problem, and when I say Western democracies, I also mean countries like India, Japan, and others. All I'm including all democracies in it, but West particularly, because that's where the battle is being fought very incessantly right now. This is what they are doing to you. They are totally aware that the Western politician will bend backwards to accommodate them, what Douglas Murray calls Islamophilia. Your thoughts on that? Will the skill, and they know that the politician would like to win the election, votes matter, and
Yeah.
they vote with a vote bank.
Listen, I tend to agree with Douglas Murray a lot. And listen, I mean, again, there's no silver bullet, but it's a will, it's a societal will factor. And until we get a politician up there to say the Muslim Brothers is a terrorist organization, they're the father, they're the mother or father to most Islamic terrorist groups, they're banned. Okay, they're banned. Hizb ut-Tahrir, banned, illegal. Jamaati Islami, banned. Hate groups, all of them banned, debank, for freezing their bank accounts, get out. Yes, a lot of major Muslim charities and NGOs would be hit by this because they're openly affiliated with Muslim Brotherhood. Who cares? Banned. If they're really doing any charity work, actual Muslim citizens within a year will find their own charities, and the ecosystem will be fine, and they'll aid will go to hospital building somewhere in Bangladesh. Like it can get sorted out, but it's a matter of, okay, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Hamas supporters go. If you don't have full citizenship and you're supporting Hamas, deport. Like, Islamists are bold, but as soon as deterrence starts to be set, extremists calm down. If you go after the money and you set some deterrence, if you say like, okay, you're gonna support Hamas, okay, you lose your job as a teacher, deported, consequences, jail. Like, you're breaking the laws. We don't need new laws. We don't need new laws against Muslims or anything crazy like that. We have laws on the books against incitement to violence, promotion of terrorism, support of terrorism, funding terrorism. List Jamaati Islami, Hezbollah, Tahrir, and the Muslim Brotherhood. Those are the three biggest Islamist organizations in the world. Any other Islamist organizations too, you do the top 10, right? Those are your top three. Whatever proxies come out of them, ban them, ban them, ban them, ban them, ban them. Be quick on the draw. Get these people out. Get the leaders in jail. Get the money out of it. And if you take out the heads and you cut out the money and you show, hey, there's some deterrence here, it will calm down. Because the reason why these organizations are growing and growing and growing is because they scream Islamophobia and everyone backs out and gives them what they want. They're dominant right now.
Right.
And Islamists tend to, when they feel like they're dominant, that's when they're the most dangerous. And that's when they push the most. It's when they feel like they're under threat and there's consequences that they go underground. Their book tells them to do this. Like, it's not like I'm making them up. Like, the Quran gives you the tools to deal with radical Islam. Like, it tells its followers how to act if there's a threat of deterrence. It's calm down and it's wait for things to a better scenario. But like, Islamists, if there's deterrence and they feel like they like pushing is more counterproductive than productive, they'll stop and go underground. The book tells them to do it. The same book that tells them to try and infiltrate tells them when to stop.
That's fascinating to know that they also tell them to stop. The important part here is there is another one which is baffling me. I shouldn't say baffling. everything unfolds in a very interesting way. When Trudeau made an announcement in this parliament that China and India are the two most one and two countries that are detrimental to Canadian democracy. Now, about China, one can understand. I mean, I don't have any direct evidence, as you may have perhaps, that China is interfering in Canada. Why?
They have
Different.
police stations in our country. There are
That's
Chinese
right.
CCP police stations in our country.
That's right.
Yeah.
But India does India have any direct interference in Canadian process?
I mean, let's just take Trudeau's word for gold. Like, you probably shouldn't. So India killed Hardip Singh Nijjar, okay? Canada's favorite terrorist. So the logic here must be, okay, so there's only two ways this works. And I can even say this on the India. China, we get, it's the CCP. So either the Khalistani infiltration and political interference is being counted under the banner of India and not Pakistan or China. That could be one thing, because we do know, I mean, the car theft, the immigration fraud, the trucking. So we do know the strength of the Khalistani movement in Canada. So maybe the Khalistani movement, even though it's an anti-India movement, is being counted under the banner of India. That could be one reason how we got here. Like, it's an accounting error. Someone sort of willfully fudged the numbers to create a narrative that inverts reality. That's, I think, the most likely. The second way is India. We'll go back to Hardip Singh Nijjar. Let's say India killed Hardip Singh Nijjar. Okay. India is such a bad actor in our democracy that they're killing all our terrorists, right? The India's interference in Canada is they're fighting Khalistani separatists in Canada, in which case we're counting Khalistan and the global Khalistani movement as Canada, and saying India's actions against Khalistan is an action against Canada. Because I don't know about you, but again, I know bureaucrats in democratic countries. I've met some officials of India, Canada, ding dongs. Most politicians are ding dongs. Most bureaucrats on the whole, I mean, I don't know what planet these guys live on. This across the board. Okay. To think that these people are even capable of some sort of wide scale political interference. If you've ever met anyone in like the general low-level diplomatic corps, if you've ever met counselor generals of any country, to think that they're capable of anything is conspiratorial at the most. So I don't know how you can get India above Pakistan or Iran. I mean, the Islamic Republic, we have 700 active IRGC agents in Canada. People were caught Hezbollah, like taking film and scouting Toronto Pearson Airport, the biggest airport, for Hezbollah. What are we talking about, India? The second we find the Indian High Commissioner scouting the airport for a terrorist attack, then come call me about Indian foreign interference. Okay, then I will listen. Right, but any report that puts India over Iran or China, like, no, it's, and I gotta imagine they're counting Khalistani foreign interference, pretty much Pakistan, as India. So I think the report should probably be China, Pakistan, Iran, but that's why I'm not a liberal. That's why I'm not Minister of Immigration or whatever it is.
That's why you are a realist, not you are.
That's why I'm forced to live in reality instead of. I mean, since 2015, Canada's just been a fever dream of Justin Trudeau. Like, it's.
Tell me one thing. It's very interesting. We continue to talk about the Khalistani guys in Canada. How are the Islamist guys? I don't hear much about them. They are keeping quiet, or they are just enjoying the fun the Trudeau government is having. Its romance.
They're all over the place. It's just it's reached critical mass. It's bad. It's in there. All our institutions are corrupt. The jihadists have captured every single institution. They get exactly what they want. They get everything they want. They bully the Jews. They bully the Hindus. They bully everyone. And they have the ear of Justin Trudeau and the support of Justin Trudeau. They're in every university. The police When they need a consultation on Islamophobia, go to the most radical terrorist affiliated mosque they possibly can to get lectured about Islamophobia. It's bad. It's bad. I mean, maybe you're seeing more about the Khalistanis because maybe you're Indian and it's new, right? Like they're in the process of like, oh, and now they're here, right? Where it's like, yeah, the Islamists have been there for 20 years. It's sort of like where we're at now. So, it's I guess context.
In the context, I totally understand. There's a very nice phrase that was coined, the elitist billionaires, who I prefer to call the James Bond megalomaniac billionaire who wants to run the world in his own way. He finds the Islamists, leftists, Marxists, and as the willing allies. Professor Sarbanis had made a mention. The other, Lady Asra Nomani had alluded to that in her book, that these people have somewhere along the line found common enemy in Hindus and Jews. What bothers me is that somewhere along the line, Jews and Hindus suffer from the same malay. And the malay is that my head is 3 feet in the sand. We think that everything is fine, nothing is going to happen to me. And that's what is important. You said about that earlier, you alluded to that when the Jews are fighting, the Indian is still wondering the world is same and happy place. Somewhere along the line, that connect needs to be ignited. There needs to be an ignite. I think it is happening, but the momentum is slow. So Daniel, the other thing that I wanted to check with you was that you are in the media. We are media, actually. We report matters, things like that. We talk about it. How do you relate with one particular element that is bothering me here about the US government and Canada and the NATO and others? Two questions. NATO is the only global alliance, military alliance that exists in the world, of a few motley countries in Europe. There is no other military alliance anywhere on the planet Earth other than if you take Russia now doing with North Korea, right? The second one. Why is that essential even in this 21st century? That's one. Number two, this alliance, the United States is pushing Israel to prevent civilian deaths in its handling of Gaza and Hamas, which is a fair question. America doesn't want Israel to demolish Gaza or Hamas there, but they want Ukraine to win the war against Russia, a nuclear power who I feel that if it finds itself losing the war, it will nuke the crap out of Ukraine and NATO. You are looking at the world annihilation because Russia under Putin is not going to accept defeat at the hands of Ukraine. And everybody knows, every sane person knows that it is a NATO-inspired war. Everybody knows that Boris Johnson prevented Zelensky to agree to the peace thing that was happening there. It was Boris Johnson who said that, don't do it. That's historical truth now. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm more. I mean, I get called neocon on foreign policy a lot, and I take it and I like it. I think the Biden foreign policy is diluted in general, and I think it's actually there's not hypocrisy in Israel Ukraine. It's they're idiots on both ends, and they're different scenarios. One, I mean, a lot of people like, what about Israel? What about Ukraine? Like, okay, you have to look at every scenario differently, right? Russia invaded Ukraine. Ukraine is a Western ally. Now, the invasion of Ukraine could have been prevented had Biden kept sort of troops in there for like a military exercise indefinitely. Right. Then it would have set deterrence. All right. I'm a genius. They were predicting Russia's going to invade Ukraine for months. Okay, then do something about it. Did nothing about it. Now, we want Ukraine to win the war. I want Ukraine to win the war. Okay, I'm pro-Western. I don't want Russia to start annexing things. Like I do think NATO, the purpose of NATO is to prevent the Ukraine war. And if we had run NATO effectively and not played footsie with Ukrainians and just said, "Oh, you want to join NATO? You're in." Oh, Russia, we're complaining. I don't care. We're NATO. We're America and the confluence west. We don't care what Russia has to say. We're more powerful. We don't need to be bullied by China or Russia or Iran or anyone. Like that's the thing of NATO. It's like No, we're the best. Screw you. You want in? You want in, you want to join us? You can join us. Right? But we have to manage, we have to do diplomacy because the diplomats need to do something. They spent like $300,000 to get fancy degrees from universities that don't teach you anything. So they need to do something, which we'll have conferences and this and that.
Right.
If you want Ukraine to win, it's a different thing. Like,
yeah,
if we supply Ukraine and give them like high level the munitions they need to take an offensive and start, hitting inside Russia, they can win the war in Russia. Like, the thing with Ukraine is they just need to not lose to win the war, right? It's the opposite thing for the Israelis. Like, the Israelis need to win the war, right? If Hamas survives, they win the war, right? So the only way Israel wins is they need to destroy Hamas and they need to take control of the Gaza Strip. This whole, like, we can't just reset it back to 2006 where Hamas takes control again. UNRWA comes in and teaches the kids to be terrorists. And the books that the kids have in school say jihad is the way forward. The Jews stole your lunch money, blah, 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 blah. Like, that needs to be gone. So in both cases, you actually have the Biden administration going around pretending they're so pro-Ukraine, they're so pro-Israel. But in reality world versus fantasy land, they're hamstringing both of their allies with ridiculous concessions and conditions and playing domestic politics. Like, this is a problem with Western foreign policy is Western, like, I always like, listen, Western foreign policy and domestic policy are always linked. Okay. It isn't this clean derivative. Like, if, for example, energy is the biggest foreign policy issue there is. It's also the biggest domestic policy issue there is, right? They're inextricably linked. You can't separate or parse it out from either one. But you have this sort of thing where, like, Biden's making decisions on Israel because, there's an election in a Jewish riding in New York. Okay, well, anti-Semitism is bad. Dearborn, Michigan, I need Michigan votes. Okay, so I think Hamas is great and kill all the Jews. It's coming up in California. So we're playing this sort of schizophrenic foreign policy game based on domestic policy, and it's creating chaos. And the Islamic Republic of Iran is taking advantage of it, and they're firing missiles at American troops. And because Biden wants to play this middle line, he's like, how do I keep the Jews and the Muslims? Because you can tell the Democrats have totally given into the paradigm. All Muslims hate Jews, and that's the paradigm we go with. So it's clear that the Democrats believe that every Muslim hates every Jew, and they're governing sort of and making decisions, based off of this. But when you create chaos and there's no like hard deterrence, you do this, you lose things. So, like, the Islamic Republic of Iran learned that they can fire a couple hundred missiles at American soldiers, even kill some, and the consequences will be minimal, absolutely minimal. Okay, so they didn't find a red line at firing at American troops. How about we tell our proxies, the Houthis, to start hijacking global shipping? Hijack global shipping. Oh, the Americans are doing nothing about that. Oh, no, we struck Yemen. Oh, no. You called Yemen beforehand, told them you're going to strike them, and then did a cosmetic strike against Yemen. That's not a strike against the Houthis. That's a green light to the Houthis. Okay, what's next, right? And then you saw, further escalation. I mean, the Islamic Republic of Iran, their only problem they have right now, other than they lost their fake president in a helicopter and they need to get a new fake president, their only problem is they can't find the red line, and they can't come up with new terrorist schemes quick enough to push Joe Biden on, because it's just a total green. They didn't know what to do. Like, they thought there would be some red line, and they'd find it somewhere, but they can't find it. So expect once they get a new president and get back on the horse, to find a new way to try and kill Americans.
That's so, it's a very disturbing thought that we get so easily flummoxed and bulldozed by political considerations, as you rightly said. Whether it's New York or Michigan, Hamas is right there, Jews are right here. But we are living in an era today because, thanks to technology, news travels faster than the speed of lightning. See, the whole world is seeing that you can sneeze now. That's what the power of technology is.
I'm the best at sneezing.
Yeah, and this is what is important for people to know, for the politicians to know, that your actions are now visible in that moment. So when you indulge in duplicitous behavior, it is visible. vote determine your action. You talked about Michigan. Indian democratic groups were bullied by certain high functionary in Democratic Party to not include the Indian map in the Michigan area because Biden would lose Michigan if Hindu India name was mentioned there. It's on record. People have confessed this that yes, we did not do that. We didn't vote despite giving so much money to the Democrats or Biden. That's the problem where the enemies of democracy have configured
Mhm.
that we can threaten and bully these guys in the name of votes, where in areas where the voting difference is not so sharp. So look at it this way. Ilhan Omar and Tlaib openly advocated all Muslims to vote for Biden in 2020 elections in Georgia. And I then wondered on this show, in a conversation with somebody, I wonder what the Democrats or Republicans would have done if we Hindus had called upon Hindus to vote en bloc for a particular candidate. That seems to be the dilemma of the democracies around the world, which others have understood.
Well,
So,
I think you know that let's say you are the appointed Pope of Hindus. I know there's not a thing, but let's say you're American Pope of Hindus. Okay,
yeah.
you know that you can go and say Hindus vote Democrat, and there won't be a backlash. Might be some grumblings, but you also know if you say Hindus vote Republicans, you might end up on a list. Right?
So how does the right fix its own problem?
It's a matter of will. I just like it's just about not caring and pushing through. Like the problem with a lot of people in like circles, we go back to Jews and Hindus, but conservatives too, like the Conservative Party of Canada, Republicans, and the people on our side. We have this like instant fear reaction to like everything. Like we immediately think of how we're going to be attacked, and you know, we always accept their paradigm, and it's a like when you're presented with a lose-lose scenario, you have to shift the paradigm or else you're going to lose. Like you got to change it up and do something. So, for example, like, sometimes you talk with Hindus who are like so on our side, and Jews have the same thing. You can invert this. Is like, you talk with the Jewish Hindu alliance. And the first thing is like, oh, okay, we're just afraid. What if they start saying Zionism and Hindutva are uniting and coming for us? What if they do that? Then you say, yes, we are. We're coming for
Deal
you.
with it. Deal with it.
Yes, we are.
Absolutely.
And you say, listen, I'm a Zionist. I believe Israel's right to exist. I'm Hindutva. I'm pretty libertarian. Hindutva is anti-caste. I don't believe in the caste system. I believe Hindus should be united. I believe India should be united. And Hindutva doesn't exclude other religions. Hinduism is embracing of all the religions. It includes all dharmic societies, Sikh, Jain, Buddhists, even Muslims, Christians, and Jews who believe that India, as a historic Hindu dharmic civilization and want to work within it, are part of Hindutva. It's a pretty liberal philosophy. Yes, I accept it. Boom. That's how you deal with it. You don't go, oh, no, we're not, right? Because the first thing Jews have a thing is like, what if we're Zionists, but what if people accuse us of being Zionists? Maybe we should phrase it in a way that the people who hate us, no, the people who hate you hate you. If you let them dictate the pace at which you go, if you let them frame the narrative, if you live in their world, right? I'm sure you've heard the sports expression, and many Americans have, right? We don't want to play their game, right? Like play your own game, right? If you do that, you'd be successful. But many of us in whatever circles we have, like it's the bane of my existence trying to deal with the Jewish community. It's even worse in the Conservative Party of Canada. I'm not sure how the Republicans are. I can't imagine they're all too much better. And it's the same problems that come in the Hindu community. Is the first thing we think of is all the bad that can happen, and what are we going to do with the attacks, and how do we deal with the criticism and that, instead of like, how do we frame our own narrative and set the pace? Like there needs to be this mental breaking in our heads that we stop instantly catastrophizing, and we need to think of how do we set the pace. Like, we'll be the pace setters. They'll play our game.
Totally agree with you. And this is what I keep talking to my Hindu friends. I said, stop apologizing for what you are not, and stop defending what you don't need to.
Exactly.
This is so very important. And forget about being aggressive and belligerent about your faith. Stop being apologetic. Stop defending what you are doing. Don't apologize. Oh, this is the way. No, this is the way I am. The narrative has to change.
Yeah.
So, for example, somebody asked me, why the hell don't you eat beef? And my answer was very simple. The same reasons, perhaps, that you don't eat pork, or Christians don't eat horse. The reason you banned it. There won't be any cavalry if you ate horse meat. There won't be any cavalry of those days. There is no need to be apologetic about what you do or what you don't. This is the way I am. I'm willing to be different. I'm willing to change, but I'm not going to compromise on my essential principles. And that is what is important. Daniel, it is always great to have you. And, let's talk again. As I always say, I always end my shows with the proclamation, Satyameva Jayate, which means truth will triumph. I also add to that, for truth to triumph, you and I have to stand for it and fight for it.
Exactly.
Truth will not win on its own. You have to fight for it. Everything needs a contest. Take the sportsman analogy. You got to play your game. Your opponent is out to beat the crap out of you. You got to play your game to win by one run or one wicket, or as the NHL would say, by one puck. Doesn't matter. So thank you very much for joining, Daniel. Thank you very much to the viewers. Please like, subscribe, and support our channel. We love your feedback, and we count on you to support us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
And everyone subscribe, or else.
you. Thank you.